Hey friends. Well, it's been a music-tastic day. My daughter had not one, but two violin group classes today, which is sort of a weird freak of nature occurrence in a city that actually doesn't have very many of those classes. But she's got a regular one, and then her teacher happened to schedule one on this day, and they were not, they didn't conflict with each other, so we did both. And then, at the end of the second one, there was a recital that we did not know was happening, so we were able to go in, and it was really fun because Annalise had come up to me in class. She'd heard about the recital, and she said, "Papa, I'm afraid, do I have to do a performance today?" And I was like, "No, we didn't even know this was happening." I was totally clueless. And then but it was right upstairs. And so we walked in, a beautiful hall, bunch of kids playing. We sat down, and immediately she was like, "Papa, I want to play," which seems to be what happens to her whenever we walk into a concert hall. That as soon as she's in the room, she's like, "Yes, let's do this." The idea of it somehow is, I think, scarier than the actual moment. So, and then she sort of made a friend with one of the other kids who studies violin in that class, and she got invited to a birthday party. We're going to a water park tonight. It's one of those days that just sort of like feels like it is careening from one thing to the next. But one of the things that keeps showing up for me, I have to sort of, I think this is just a life practice for me now, which is I have to continually audit, where is my enthusiasm for what Annalise is doing musically coming from? Is it coming from me? Is it my agenda? Or is it coming from her? And I've done any number of posts over the past year and a half. She's been studying violin about a year and a half. So I've done any number of posts over the last year and a half where I kind of reflect on this, and I think about it. I look at, I just kind of try and do an audit of my own motives. And sometimes just saying things out loud helps me either clarify something for myself or see something, that's already there but not apparent. And the tricky thing is, a child, a 5-year-old in this case, requires a certain amount of structure requires it to be held within a certain amount of structure. And especially when it comes to something like a musical practice or something like that, it's not something generally, unless you've got I'm sure that there are some really sort of phenom type prodigy children who at that age are already completely just self-motivated down the rabbit hole of music. I've seen them. I've seen kids like that. Not quite at her age, but 6. I've seen kids who are, but they're prodigy level. They're, they end up playing with some state symphony when they're 7 years old. But short of that, there's got to be some, and even those kids, I think, probably have a lot of structure provided by their parents. And certainly in the case of someone who's very, very talented, plenty of focusing capacity, all that, but not an otherworldly prodigy, there's a certain amount of like, okay, I'll bring the structure to this because that creates the context for musical evolution. And I was just hearing chatting with one of the Montessori in the home teachers a few days ago, and she was talking about how Shinichi Suzuki, who of course founded the Suzuki method of learning violin, but also other instruments, was really a sort of a devotee, a fan of Maria Montessori's work. And he very explicitly says in his teaching philosophy, he says, I'm not trying to produce prodigies. I'm trying to create the opportunity to create whole, healthy human beings, and have musical practice be part of that overall development, part of that overall evolution. And you know, it's music to my ears, no pun intended, because ultimately that's all I would ever wish for my own children. It's all I would ever wish for myself. You know, we as artists, and especially as people who've done, you know, university training in a discipline and who have worked hard and practiced hard and had performances that were successes and had performances that were failures and been through the ringer of a musical life, it's easy to get hung up or, you know, focused on a particular kind of evolution or a particular outcome or goal. I'm speaking about myself now, not so much about Annalise. But I think that, you know, so that's something that just like, it's really nice to come back to the philosophies of great teachers, great pedagogues, because they always kind of bring it back to the core. They always have a way of grounding back into a deeper reality of what's happening over the course of a musical evolution or any kind of creative evolution. And of course, if I'm getting hung up on stuff in myself, that's gonna radiate, that's gonna end up kind of polluting my ability to guide my daughter or any other student towards that deeper outcome, because I'm gonna get somewhere in there, I'm gonna go blind. I'm gonna get fixated on something, and it's gonna close the door to the bigger picture because I'm knotted up around this one thing. And I've been really grateful for the ways in which, you know, my recent, again, if you haven't seen my recent posts, I have a wrist injury that's healing, but the outcome, the real sort of like bigger outcome of the injury was that I went to an osteopath who started working on the wrist and ended up finding a level of just locked upness in my carpal bones that he said had nothing to do with the recent injury. He said this has been this way for probably decades. And as he started to move some of that around, create shifts in there, it was unleashing massive waves through my just emotional, psychological system, but also completely changing the way my hands feel on the keyboard. Now, I'm not fully recovered from this injury, and of course, if you've seen my posts, I fell on my face running a mountain the other day, so then I banged this wrist, not badly, but enough that like this thumb is kind of tender. So I feel like I'm, you know, I've talked a little bit about how I was needing to settle myself. Oh, I'm getting company. Oh, I'm getting a naked girl walking into the room with me. Sweet Pea, what do you need?
I'm going potty.
Oh. Well, there you have it, folks. It's okay. So, as I come through that, and as some of those shifts take place in my system, and I'm seeing all of a sudden a different kind of freedom on the keyboard, different kind of freedom technically, ability to move, the biggest thing is my ability to play a note and then release it, play a note and then let go. And I realized it's only like it was really only less than 2 weeks ago that I realized that the locked upness in my wrist was creating a situation, not even a totally unconscious tendency to play notes and stay stuck to them, not to feel like I could move off them. Try playing Chopin etudes like that. It's not pretty. So I've found this newfound, now that my wrist sort of has more mobility in it and just more life force flowing through it, I found this ability to play a note and let it go. Well, all of a sudden my hand is moving in a whole different way. Bye. Bye. That puts me in a place where some of the fixations, some of the technical fixations that I up until very recently felt like I was wrestling with are starting to dissolve without me even really working that hard on them. I mean, I'm not there yet. I don't think this is there yet, and I certainly haven't like developed my new technique. But I go to the instrument and I play some things and I feel possibility in a different way. I feel like, oh, there's just more life and health here now, even without me practicing nearly as hard as I was before the injury. I haven't gone back to that level of practicing at all yet. I'm looking forward to it, actually, but I also have other things on my plate that make it sort of hard to maybe manage that. But my point is, as I release that and I realize how profoundly my music making is impacted by an overall health, an overall state of health, or an overall impediment to health, it becomes blindingly obvious that the musical journey is a whole human being deal. Probably even getting hurt, probably even playing that stupid tennis match where I wrenched my wrist out of place was part of my musical journey in a weird way, because it's the only thing that got me in the door to someone who would actually look at my wrist and go, there's a lot going on here. You need to come back in a week. So, so then, and I think that is actually liberating and facilitating my relationship as a teacher, as a father. And it's exciting to see, it's exciting to watch, but every once in a while a 5-year-old throws up her hands and says, I'm not doing that, or this is boring, or this is stupid, or whatever she says. And that's when I need the audit. That's when I need to say, do I push here? Do I try to make her do it anyway? Do I go Montessori and let her follow her enthusiasm? Following her enthusiasm, is that a big picture thing right now, in that she clearly derives a deep pleasure from evolving on the instrument, playing the instrument, performing for people on the instrument? In the micro, there's not going to necessarily be enthusiasm for every single moment of practice, but how hard do I push here? Do I just let go? And there is no answer. That answer is different every time. It's different every single time. And I think the main thing I can keep doing is keep getting healthier myself, and keep doing the audit, keep doing a check-in, keep paying attention. So I'm reflecting on that, because we literally had an entire morning of all music. all kids violin music. So that's where I am today, folks. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Hope to see you soon.